Hello, and welcome to Discover Stories on Reimagine Radio. I'm your host, Sean Burdett with the Vancouver Adapted Music Society. Today on the show, we have Jason Cheung. Jason is an assistive technologist at GF Strong Rehabilitation Center. Jason, thank you so much for coming on today. How's it going?
Thanks for having me. It's going well.
Glad to
Yeah,
hear.
I'd love to be part of your podcast.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. How about we start off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Cool, sure. So my name is Jason. I work as the assistive technologist at GF Strong. My background by education is biomedical engineering, and I have some interest in that field too. Some tinkering with 3D printing, some modeling, and hobby electronics like Arduinos and microcontrollers. Some other stuff that I really like are sport. I do a lot of table tennis, and in the past I competed in Taekwondo. I dabble a little bit in piano and guitar too. So just a lot of interest. Not really good at any of them, but keeps things interesting.
Right on. How did you get started with engineering?
Yeah, that's not a super exciting story here. I was always a little bit better at sciences than art, and it seemed quite practical. I think from a personal standpoint too, I like figuring out how things work. There's a website called How Stuff Works. I was always on it, just trying to figure out things around me, how they function, how they are put together. Just had a natural curiosity towards how things work, and engineering just seemed like a pretty solid choice at the time. In fact, it got more interesting as I went along. I wasn't like a great student, but when I started making things and figuring out how stuff works, things that were interesting to me, I started applying some engineering principles and just kind of made sense.
Right on. Sounds like you had a real natural affinity for it, and it seems to have worked out for you in the end.
Yeah, as long as it was something that I was keenly interested in, then I was motivated to learn actually the principles behind it or to read a textbook. But in my studies, not really.
What are some of the aspects, I guess, of engineering that really drew you towards it?
Yeah, well, engineering by definition is the application of science to build, solve problems using limited resources and maximizing the usefulness of your solution. And so when you start taking into consideration human factors, then it becomes super interesting and also really difficult. So that's kind of what drew me in, not only just building things, but also applying what I know about human and environmental factors.
Right. Right on. So I do want to talk about your time at GF Strong, but I understand that prior to you joining them, you were with the Tetris Society. Could you tell us a little bit about them?
Oh yeah, actually, so I still am involved with Tetris Society
Oh,
now.
okay.
Um, so I mean, Tetra is kind of the pinnacle of what engineering means to me, actually, and what we just talked about. The application of science to build things, and so Tetra, what a wonderful organization. Um, there's some super talented and hardworking engineers, designers, in general, handy people um, with a broad range of skills, making the world just a better place, one custom adaptation at a time. Um, One of Tetra's principles that I remember reading or hearing about a while back was people aren't marginalized by disability, but obstacles in the environment. And I thought that really struck gold for me, and it just made a lot of sense. And with that in mind, the mission statement that they have of removing those obstacles, those barriers in the environment is pretty neat, and it really resonated with me. And so a while back, I joined Tetris Society too.
Okay. And how did you get started with them? How did you discover them?
Uh, there was a field trip class at Simon Fraser University. One of our professors took us all around town, going to hospitals, biomedical engineering industry, like startups and organizations. And it turns out that Tetra Society was on his hit list. And so we attended as a small class, I think maybe 6 or 7 of us at that time, one of Tetra's monthly meetings where a pool of volunteers meet up and go over the list of the requests that have come in around that month. And so we attended a meeting. We heard about a lot of the projects that were being requested by clients. And at that time, it was probably either that meeting or the meeting after, I signed up for a project to do a wheelchair tray. And I took on the project with Harry Hardy, who's an absolute legend at Tetra. And it was to make this wheelchair tray. He took me under his wing. We met at his workshop at his house, put it together, met with the client, and assembled it for him. And at the end of it, the kind of cherry on top was that I got a chance to see Harry's workshop and also his backyard aviary too, which is really cool. And then from then, I attended more meetings, did a few more projects, and that took me to where I am now.
Right on. Can you tell us a little about some of these projects that you took on? You mentioned this wheelchair tray, but what are some other projects?
Yeah, so as far as I remember, just not too many, and a lot of them were pretty simple. I think some cup holders here and there. I remember doing a cane mount to, I think it was either a scooter or a powered chair, um, and it was so simple, but so elegant. I bought this broom holder from Home Depot, like one of those click-on broom holders, and we just used a hose clamp and clamped it onto the wheelchair frame, and that was it. It was great. Sometimes the simpler the better. And then since then, we did some variations of the wheelchair safety lights. You guys, Sean, you might have heard of it, the Tetra lights. And now we're continuing to install some of them. And what other projects? Some modified sports grips. So I mentioned I'm really into table tennis, and there was a project at the time to make a modified grip for a table tennis paddle. So I took that on immediately because I was called to do it. We ended up making a 3D printed grip that changed the angle of how you hold the grip, and that worked out pretty well for the Tetra clients to use that to play recreationally. Um, and other than that, another one that comes to mind would be like a simple electronics attention getter. So the user would hit a button to activate an alarm. So very very simple stuff. I didn't get too hardcore engineering with these projects, but very very gratifying.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And you said that you're still a part of Tetra. Are you still in the current position that you started out as, or has your role changed?
I do some of the Tetralights installations and support, and I always keep my finger on the pulse for what the current projects are, just to see if make sure I'm not missing out on any really cool, fun ones.
Right on. And I sort of understand that Tetra helped you get in with GF Strong. Could you tell us a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tetra is a great place to build skills and build things actually. Um, and so definitely with some of that experience with people with disabilities in the community, that was definitely a big part of my transition to work at GF Strong. So after graduating from engineering at SFU, I took on a few different jobs. And it turns out that I was just finishing up this approximately year contract full-time job, and a couple of people in the assistive technology department at GF Strong had retired. The timing was uncanny, because it's sometimes very difficult to get positions in a hospital at GF Strong. And so at that time, I applied, and they were looking for an external applicant, and that's how I ended up at GF Strong Assistive Technology.
Right on. And so, for our listeners who aren't aware, what is GF Strong?
Well, the textbook answer would be that GF Strong is BC's, British Columbia's largest rehabilitation hospital. And I've worked here for almost 7 years now. And what I've grown to understand and realize is GF Strong is a pretty magical place. We've got it's kind of a one-stop shop for all things rehab. We've got driver rehab, assistive tech, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, rec therapy, vocational rehab, and also a couple of organizations who are headquartered here too, like BC Rehab Foundation, another fantastic organization, Spinal Cord Injury BC. But at the heart of GF Strong is an incredibly passionate um, group of staff and super hardworking, dedicated patients who have just the strength and grit that is incredibly inspiring and just beyond measure. You see them working hard every day. So to me, the textbook answer, or like the factual GS Strong is the biggest rehab hospital in BC, that's part of it. But when you really come here and you get exposed to everything that good that's going on here, you see it as a kind of magical place.
Absolutely. What's your current position at GF Strong?
Yeah. So this is the position I've held since 7 years ago, assistive technologist. So I work in the assistive technology department at GF Strong. And for listeners who may not know what assistive technology is, the broader term is any type of technology or equipment that's helps us with physical disabilities. For us, we really focus on the access to technology. So access to commercially available technology like cell phones, tablets, computers, dedicated communication devices, and then using that technology and the specialized access to control things in their environment or to do leisure activities or to communicate through maybe like instant messaging or email. And so in assistive technology, as the assistive technologist, I really work with the occupational therapists and speech language pathologists on the team to figure out the types of technologies that we can recruit for our clients to be able to uh, access these technologies as well as all the things that technology can offer.
Okay. So, I guess in an application context, what does that work look like for you?
Ooh, the day to day is pretty dynamic. So, for example, when we typically recommend commercially available technology, there's there's sometimes where it doesn't work kind of out of the box for the people we serve, and so I may come up with custom adaptations, really simple adaptations, but sometimes these adaptations are the little bit extra that is needed for our clients to be able to use the technology. So I may use a combination of machine shop tools to make something, or 3D printing to make customized grips, or make custom device mounts. And so this would be kind of the design or engineering work that I do within the group. I also evaluate equipment and software that's, as you know, tech changes super fast. And so keeping up with the tech that's out there, finding out how and if it's appropriate for the clients we serve. I also develop our assistive technology resource center. So in the past, it was more like a computer lab where inpatients and patients in the community can come in to use the computers. But these days, a lot of people have their own devices. So we've started to convert that space into a more resource center, or more like a showroom where we have individual stations to showcase different types of assistive technology. For example, we have our smart home demo station, which showcases all the things that you can control in the home, like using your voice or using your smartphone or tablets. Things like lights, plugs, smart blinds, the TV, video doorbells, smart locks. So things that you can control using apps on your phone or using your voice without having to physically push a button or turn on a switch or pull the blinds, for example. So that's our assistive technology resource center. We also have our mobile device access station that we've integrated with our smart home station. So the whole purpose of these stations is to demonstrate the types of technology that is out there, and for people to come in and try for themselves whether or not it would work for them in their environment. Most recently, we've added the adaptive gaming station, which I think a lot of people are interested in. We've got tremendous demand for adaptive gaming or adaptive gaming equipment. And so we've recently put that together to, again, just have a space where people can come in and see what the current state of adaptive gaming is. We have an Xbox Series S with the Microsoft Xbox Adaptive Controller with a lot of different switches and joysticks to be able to test out. So that's let's see, the Assistive Technology Resource Center. I do a lot of communications for our group, creating awareness for assistive technology, maintaining our website to provide some educational material. And I do a little bit of consultation and education from presentation standpoint beyond the communication materials. And then lately, working on inventory for our group to keep track of all of the stuff that we loan out to make sure they don't go missing.
Yeah, no, of course. Of all the sub-disciplines within engineering, why assistive technology?
So I was never, I think I was never really into engineering where, you try to make the next computer chip 10 times faster or um, make a battery last 10 times longer. That was never really the engineering that I look forward to. I like the instant gratification of engineering, to being able to build something and to see it work or see it being used right away. So less the research side of engineering, but more just making something so that someone can potentially use it. And so to me, the engineering and solving some of the challenges revolving disability is kind of a perfect match. And it's certainly a privilege to be able to use some of the skills that I have to serve the disability community. So I think that's kind of what I look forward to and why I went into engineering for disability accommodation.
Absolutely.